Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to the distinguished speakers and participants. Thank you. I think, and then also to the organizers for the invitation. I think that this discussion is very timely, especially since the Deputy Prime Minister has embarked on an initiative to establish a national children's well-being roadmap. First of all, I'd like to convey my apologies on behalf of Professor Rozhan Osman, who's the Strategic Director at the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister, as well as Ms. Noor Ayuni, who's the Special Officer in charge of Cabinet Matters. Because of preparations for Parliament, they were both unable to be present and to join us here today. My name is Gillian Gan. I joined the Deputy Prime Minister's office earlier this month, so keep that in mind as I go through this presentation. My primary task here is to provide a brief explanation of the process that the Deputy Prime Minister's office has embarked on to establish the National Children's Wellbeing Roadmap. And since then, I've been working very closely with both Mr. Chua and Ms. Dayang at the Policy Department of the Ministry of Women, Community and Family Development on working to make this a success. I'm also here to absorb as much material as possible and to absorb the discussion and report back to my superiors in the Deputy Prime Minister's office. Again, I'd like to reiterate that Ms. Dayang has gone through much more of the policy side. I'm here more to explain the process of establishing this roadmap. So a little bit of the context of what led us here today. As many of you know, UNICEF released a report in February this year on that provided a detailed study of urban child poverty and deprivation, particularly in low-cost flats in the Kuala Lumpur region. And this sparked a national debate on the issue of child protection, and it became a catalyst for the minister to initiate this roadmap on children's well-being. The process is up on the screen. The office initiated this process particularly to identify, assess, and resolve the gaps in existing policies. As already mentioned in previous discussion, some of the programs that have in place do not necessarily reach the target groups. And so the first stage of our process is to identify issues in order to get an overview of the other ministries and what their plans are and their programs are in resolving these issues. And the way forward from this is to hold a stakeholders consultation. We're not sure when this might happen yet, but hopefully we'll be able to notify participants in due time. Okay, so here is the UNICEF report that has been widely quoted. It revealed findings on multidimensional child poverty, and the survey revealed stark statistics on urban child poverty. One crucial aspect of the process of establishing a national roadmap is to identify the gaps in the disbursement of aid, to minimize the overlap amongst ministries, and to maximize the reach of these policies and programs. So here's a sense of where we are in the process of establishing the roadmap. On the 21st of June, Professor Rozhan called an interagency meeting with the 5 ministries and UNICEF as well, KPWKM being the Ministry for Women, Community and Family Development, KKM being the Health Ministry, KDN being the Home Ministry, KPLB being the Rural Ministry, and KPM being the Ministry of Education. As well as UNICEF were present at this interagency meeting. To the 3rd of July, briefings were held on the way the lab session would be conducted, on the identifying of issues concerning children's well-being, mainly on an explanation of the issues mapping stage. And on the 10th of July, we had a lab session with the ministry's participation, not just to generate real ownership and participation from the ministries, but also to really break down some of these issues and identify whether these issues are being resolved and met, and to sort of create a coherent strategy moving forward on children's well-being. So we've created a preliminary issues map from the discussion. And at this stage, we have circulated this roadmap to request the ministries to provide input on existing programs, which either should be continued, increased, reduced, stopped, or new programs that are not in place that need to be included. And so also, as I mentioned, moving forward, we do plan to engage NGOs, academia, and other stakeholders on this national roadmap moving forward. So here is a snapshot of the gaps that we hope to resolve from the process of establishing the roadmap. As already mentioned, one of them is, of course, addressing the overlapping ministerial functions that may have led to aid not reaching the target groups. We want to create an integrated approach to social protection for children. And also, of course, another example of a gap that's not being addressed is the state of refugee and undocumented children who cannot access education, which is essentially one of the primary reasons we invited the Home Ministry for their approach on the issue and for them to provide potential, for us to work together to find a potential solution. This is the preliminary issues map that we have, that has resulted from the lab session. So they contain 8 broad areas under the roadmap, and we've circulated them for feedback from each participating ministry. The first is parenting, which involves issues of negligence, issues of domestic violence. With delinquency, some of the issues are substance abuse, bullying, gangsterism, education. We look at access and how undocumented children fall into the education system. Health, we look at sexual reproductive health, mental health, accessibility of health and treatment, malnutrition, child support system. We look at affordability, geographic challenges, safety, habitat and community. Some of the issues we looked at are housing, community apathy, accessibility to childcare, social services. With abuse and neglect, some of the issues we're looking at are issues like child marriage, baby dumping, sexual assault, sexual grooming. And special segments, we've not confirmed these issue names yet, but they comprise this special segment of 3 main segments: the undocumented children, refugees, as well as children with special needs. So moving forward, the Deputy Prime Minister's Office hopes to focus on these 4 pillars in establishing the national roadmap, namely leadership, coordination, skilled talent, as well as partnerships. Hopefully with the strong commitment of the Deputy Prime Minister as well as the Deputy Minister in the Ministry for Women's, Community and Family Development, will be able to establish a real and implement a roadmap that is beneficial to children and their protection. This is the Deputy Prime Minister, to show that she's very committed to this process, and that though she has instructed her officers to work with experts and with civil society to establish an integrated and multidimensional approach to children's well-being. So that's the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them either by email or in this